C1 Coordinate Geometry, Example 9. In this example, we've been given two pair of line segments which are perpendicular to each other. So we have two line segments, so we've got DE here and DF are perpendicular to each other. That means they are at right angles to each other. So in this example, we need to work out the gradients of each pair of the lines. So if I work out the gradient of the line DF, I've got to work out the gradient, I've got to do the change in y over the change in x. So the change in y is 2 and the change in x is 4. So it's 2 over 4, which is a half. But my line is going downhill, so it's a negative gradient, so it's going to be minus a half. If I look at DE, the change in y is 4 and the change in x is 2. So it's 4 over 2, which is 2. And my line is going uphill, so it's a positive gradient, so it's plus 2. Now if I look at AC, my change in y is 3, my change in x is 3, so 3 divided by 3 is 1, and it's going downhill, so it's a negative gradient, so the gradient of AC is minus 1. For AB, I've got the change in y is 2, the change in x is 2, so I've got 2 divided by 2, which is 1. I've got an uphill line, so I've got a positive gradient, so the gradient of AB is 1. For the line OM, the change in y is 2, the change in x is 6, so I've got 2 over 6, which is a third. It's going downhill the line, so that means it's a negative gradient, so the gradient of OM is minus a third. The line MN, the change in y is 6, the change in x is 2. It's going uphill, so it's a positive gradient, so the gradient of MN is a third. If we look at JL, the gradient of JL is minus a fifth as it's going downhill, and the gradient of JK is 5. For GI, the gradient of GI is minus a quarter as it's going downhill, so it's a negative gradient, and the gradient of GH is 4. And the gradient for PR is minus 2 because it's going downhill, so it's a negative gradient, and the gradient of PQ is going uphill, so it's going to be a positive gradient, and the gradient's a half.